Good evening to you and welcome to The Social Impact on kwmedia.live. I'm Keenan Williams and we are streaming live right now on kwmedia.live for the next 15 minutes. So if you'd like to connect with us, you can send us your WhatsApp text or voice messages to +27 764 76 9277. Alternatively, you can connect with us via all forms of social media at KWM Socials. So if you are a parent, you would know that fussy eating isn't something which only existed in the days when we were younger, but that our little ones, no matter how much we love them, often drive us up the wall because they don't want to eat what we prepared for them, damn it. Yesterday they may have enjoyed something, but today the food gets spat out and ends up on that neatly ironed white shirt. So tonight we are going to tackle this once and for all as we chat about children who are fussy eaters, and we'll be looking at children between toddlerhood, if that's even a word, up until 10 years of age. And joining me now is parenting conversationalist Victorine Mbong Shu and registered dietitian and nutrition educator at Shaw Academy at Abby Courtenay. Ladies, thanks so much for joining me on The Social Impact tonight. Victorine, let's start with you. You are a mother of 4. How do we indeed deal with a child who is a picky eater?
Kenan, asking why some children are fussy eater is like asking me why some children are tall and some are not tall. But yes, there is an easy answer to why some children are fussy eaters. The first thing I would say is that children are attracted to what they are exposed to continuously. You know, there's a theory in life that if you continuously expose people to certain things, they get to like that things, whether they like it or not. So when we have these children, when we are teaching them when to start eating, we deliberately or not leave certain dishes out of that or certain meals out of that teaching. By the time we introduce those dishes, their taste buds had already developed. And when it has developed, it might have tended to reject the particular meal that they come to reject. When that happens, it is extremely difficult for children to then consume what we did not expose them to. Another thing that makes them picky eater is that certain things do not taste good, yes, like I've covered, but also certain things do not look good. So they tend to focus on the attractiveness of that. I think we would cover how to combat this when we will talk about attractiveness when we cover how to combat picky eating. But when things don't look good, children find it difficult to consume. So presentation is also key in how we feed children, especially very young children. And then another thing is the parents' attitude, the attitude of the people around, the siblings, the parents, the role models of this child. So when you do not present a positive attitude towards a certain meal or certain types of meals, it also pushes children to tend to reject those type of meals. So mind what attitude you put towards these meals. You know, I know a mango, for instance. I have always sung a song of mango and told my children how I grew up eating mango and how my siblings and I would fight over mango and how we would climb mango trees and fall down and break an arm, a leg, a head and still climb the next day, you know. And this has actually prompted a unique love for mango from my children. And unlike other fruits where they eat those fruits with joy, they eat mango with some sentiments. And the reason this came about was because my first son didn't like mango when he was young. He thought it was mushy, whatever that meant, you know, so he would complain. And when I took the storytelling approach, I realized that he started liking mango for the story, because each time we came across mango, he would want me to tell him the story while I peel the mango. He would want me to tell the people who are around while they eat the mango. And that then developed a love that he had for mango. So try and expose children positively to foods.
You know, if my mom, when I was growing up, started telling me a story about why I should be eating an olive, I don't think I would have fallen for it. But good on your son for enjoying mangoes. I'm also someone who thinks that mangoes are too mushy, too squishy. Yeah. I just don't like mangoes, not at all. Abby, I'd like to bring you in here. If I look at my daughter, for example, right, I know that on occasion she eats her vegetables, and it's something she really enjoyed at first, but she has her days when she rather opts for that roast chicken instead, or the cereal instead of the veggies. How do we get our children to eat their vegetables?
A question I get from a lot of my patients is, how do I get my child to eat vegetables? Now, one of the most important things there is to lead by example. So if you want your child to eat vegetables, you need to eat vegetables. And if you want your child to be an adventurous eater, you really need to try out some new foods as well. What I also find very helpful is to try and offer your child any new types of food, so whether it's vegetables or otherwise, with a familiar food, so that it's not just strange foods on their plate that can make them feel quite scared. And with young children, specifically children around the age of 2, they suffer from a condition called neophobia, which is essentially a phobia of new foods. So by serving them a familiar food together with the new food, they know that they won't go hungry, and they can, of course, have the familiar food. It's very important that you make meal times pleasant, though. So you really don't want to shout at your child and increase their anxiety around these kinds of foods. If they want to eat it, that's great. If they don't want to eat it, it doesn't mean that you must give up. It just means that you will continue to offer that food to your child, and eventually they will come around to eating it. Some of the research shows that it takes between 15 and 20 exposures to a new food before a child will readily accept it. So it's really important just to keep putting it on their plate, because what happens is parents will often offer something to their child once, and then what happens is the child doesn't want to eat it and they never offer it again. So how can you possibly get used to eating something if you aren't exposed to it on a regular basis? So the key there is really to offer variety of fruits and vegetables and all sorts of other foods as frequently as possible. And this kind of links up quite nicely with not cooking meals for different family members, which I know drives a lot of moms insane. You cook one meal for your family, everybody gets the same thing. It doesn't mean that everybody has to eat everything that is on their plate, because that's a really old, outdated way of thinking about things. But what happens is the child, or your child, needs to understand that these foods are not going away. Just because they don't like them doesn't mean that they're going to be going away.
And that is it, because growing up, I know that for me, I thought that a lot of these foods that I didn't enjoy, I was talking about the olive earlier and the mango, that would just disappear. But into adult life, it was still around, it's still there. And I married a woman who really enjoys all the stuff that I don't like. Mangoes, pawpaw, watermelon, all these things that I don't like, she likes them. So we have these things in our house, and she enjoys it. I still don't enjoy it, but growing up, I thought that it would have just disappeared. So this is not just the thing that's in the minds of, the young children or the millennials of today, but I had that in my mind as well. A reminder that you are welcome to send us your questions via WhatsApp, text, or voice message, or your experiences as a parent of a fussy eater. What's maybe working for you, which could work for us as well. You can WhatsApp us on +27 76 476 9277. That's what Karen has done. Karen saying that her daughter eats vegetables today, but not tomorrow. It ties into what we were just talking about, Abby. Karen's also asking here, is it okay to add sugar to my child's vegetables? When is the right time to add sugar to my child's vegetables?
With regards to introducing added sugars to a child's diet, I usually say to parents that it really depends on the family's diet. It's not something that we should give our children, definitely not in the very early stages of complementary feeding, which is usually from 6 months. We don't need to add any sugar. We don't have to add any salt to their foods. And really, when it comes to added sugars, especially things like sweets and cold drinks and puddings and desserts, there really is no nutritional need to add them to your child's diet. But at the same time, we do know that they're nice, and we know that our kids will probably enjoy them. And so then that ends up being a treat food, something that they have occasionally. It's the same advice that I would give to an adult. We have those kinds of foods when we feel like them. We don't have them as a meal or as a snack. A meal and a snack should be balanced, healthy combinations of our carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, whereas a treat can be anything that you desire, but only when you really feel like it. So really, when it comes to the ideal time to introduce these types of foods to your child, there is no ideal time, but to try and push it as late as possible, or to follow whatever the family is doing. And then again, we hope that the family is following some pretty healthy guidelines to start off with, so not having those foods on a regular basis.
Victorine, there's a message coming through on our Instagram at KWM Socials, and this one is from Yum123 asking, how do we make meals and food exciting for our children?
Oh, that is a beautiful question. Getting a child to try new things is easy. Just excite them. You pick up something, you go, oh my, I haven't eaten this for a very long time, and I know I used to love it at your age. Do you want to try it? There you go. And they try it, and you ask them for their feedback, and then give them the opportunity to introduce someone else to that thing as well. Even if you know that someone had eaten the thing before, let that child be the one to introduce that person to that thing, or let that child be the one to serve it the next time.
Brilliant.
When the children are very young, it's actually very easy to get them hooked onto so many things, because they really do not know the difference between so many things. So when you introduce them pleasantly into these things, they just tend to love it. They tend to follow the cue that you give them. Also give them the history. Tell them a story about the thing if you know any. If you don't know any, research with them together, or get someone who knows it. Those of you who are lucky enough to have generations of parents around you, get someone who knows about the particular meal or particular food to talk about it, and then you then talk about it to your child. Make a phone call, do something that will excite the child about that particular food. But always make sure that your attitude towards that food is pleasant, because like I said earlier, they pick cues from us and they go by our cues.
Lastly, if we come to you, Abby, and we talk about the what we're talking about tonight, and we get into the meat and the bones of why children are fussy eaters from a dietitian's perspective, and also you being in the nutrition game as well. Why are some children fussy eaters? Why don't they want to eat the vegetables, and some don't want to eat the meat? What's the science behind that?
A lot of children are fussy eaters, and it can stem from many, many different reasons. Some of the reasons could be tactile, so it could be because of the texture of the food, and this can be prevented by introducing lumpy foods to your child before the age of 8 months. So that seems to be a window of opportunity with regards to textures. So when your child is nearing about 8 months and you've started feeding them solid foods from about 6 months, you want the food to be lumpy in texture, so sort of a mashed consistency. You don't want to just be offering purees at that point. If your child is older than 8 months or is a little bit older, let's say, for example, they're 2 or 3 years old and they're struggling with tactile defensiveness, sometimes you can ask an OT or a speech and language therapist to assist you with any kinds of tactile defensiveness that they may have. Other reasons for being fussy, it could be that your child doesn't enjoy the flavor of different types of foods. Again, and their mood can affect what they eat and how much they eat. Once again, I think it ties in quite nicely with what I have said previously with regards to following by example, making meal times as pleasant as possible, remembering that your child doesn't have to eat everything that is on the plate. Even if they eat a little bit, then that's okay. Remembering to not use food as a reward, because then you can either demonize or angelize food, which is not what we want to do. So there are multiple reasons for fussy eating, and unfortunately there's not a quick solve for any of them. And really what you want to try and do is work with your healthcare professionals to try to figure out why your child is a fussy eater, and then to try and work on him or her as an individual.
That's Abby Courtenay, a registered dietitian, as well as Victorine Mbong Shu. Thanks very much, ladies, for chatting to us tonight on The Social Impact. Victorine is a parenting conversationalist and getting into the hashtag Parenting 101. Thanks very much for the messages coming through. Not many parents streaming us this evening. I know that President Cyril Ramaphosa is having his State of the Nation address tonight, addressing the nation, so that's also quite important. But if you'd like to listen to more of our episodes of our podcast series, visit kwmedia.life. Till tomorrow, from myself, Keenan Williams, keep rocking SA. Bye-bye.